The name of this webinar is Being in Management and Excelling as a Team Leader. We'll go along. I'm going to be talking about a model here as we move forward. I sent you a PDF copy of the book, Excelling as a Team Leader. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is covering 4 phases in management and evaluating yourself as a leader and manager. I have a 72-page document called the Mulligan Leadership Analysis Survey that takes in 6 areas to help people assess themselves as a team unit leader and a team member leader. Now, we'll be talking a little bit, I won't get into that too much today, but the key is what is a leader and what is a manager. That's phase 1. So I came up with a title for it. It's called the Triangle Model. And I really believe that anybody that's a unit leader needs to have a performance management system in place. And 3, I think if you're going to be a unit leader, you need to know your people, be an idiosyncratic management. And so I think there's some way you need to analyze the personalities of the people on your team so that you can work with them better one-on-one. And the 4th phase is operating as a one-on-one career mentor and performance facilitator, meeting objectives to become best and advance their careers. That's what a lot of people really want. And I have a doctorate in counseling. And one of the things that you hear and read about is that a lot of people do not really have good listening and responding skills, and they don't take the time to really bring out the best in people. So these are the 4 phases I'd like to talk to you today about. Let's go to phase 1. Usually, if you're a CEO, you might say, hey, I want everybody in this organization to step up as a leader. The problem is how do you really define leadership and being a manager and offer a company-wide performance management system one-on-one training. Research, Gallup did some research and they said 82% of the people that normally are chosen to be managers are bad choices. The question is, are they bad choices or they just don't have the training to be a good team unit leader and manager? Any comments from you two? You think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, people are hired because of their technical and cultural fit. They're not hired because they're good managers. And so they kind of get promoted within the system to a point where they're now in charge. And because they're experts in the process, doesn't make them experts in dealing with people.
Well, I was telling you about when I was with Century 21, how so many brokers would hire their best salespeople to be managers, and then their sales would drop down. Okay, with that in mind, back in 2010, a guy by the name of James O'Toole said that people got tired of hearing the word management, so the consultants came up with the word leadership. And so over the years, consultants like to come up with the new buzzwords. And I notice when I go to a lot of HR meetings today, we got talent managers. Now we don't have management development directors. They're talent managers. So let's define leadership. What is it? And this is the way I see it. One leader is the team unit leader. He has a position of power. The question is, how does he or she develop personal power? The other leader that you have to really get your people that report to you to feel like they're a leader. They have a leadership role, but their role might be what you ask them to do so they become the best at what they do. It's like if you take a football team and somehow you're playing tight end, you're a leader on my team, but I want you to be the best tight end there is in pro football. And Trace, If you're the point guard on a women's basketball team, I want you to be the best point guard that you possibly can be. You're the leader at your position, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, you're not really managing anybody, but you are a leader on the squad. You play both roles, and you need to know when it's your time to play the different roles in different settings. Career ladder, being in management. You got your non-managers at the bottom, and then we move into a supervisor and project manager role. What was interesting, I was looking at some research, and it said that the older you get, the less likely you want to go into management. It's usually the younger people that think they want to go into management, but it's where management usually makes most of the money, as you know. So you can see here how you just climb the ladder all the way to be a CEO and president, maybe on the board of trustees or chairman. Chief unit leaders like to determine the destination of the organization. Where are we today and where we're going to be tomorrow? Middle and lower management are expected to manage their reports and their team unit. So wherever we're going, we take the journey in a smooth manner, and we reach our destination on time and within budget. So it's who's got the vision of where we want to go? It's usually the chief officer or the CEO. John Carter, I've really enjoyed reading his material over the years, a Harvard professor, and he defined unit leadership as establishing the direction of the organization, the objectives, aligning and motivating the people, anticipating and managing the changes that will come in front of you. Management is planning, setting the objectives as well, organizing and staffing, controlling, monitoring, measuring. Some of the same things as a unit leader, sort of an overlap. Let's talk a little bit about the functions of leadership management at all levels, and that's planning and budgeting. What are the objectives? How much will it cost us to meet them? Organizing, who's involved and how? Coordinating, who informs who about what? And controlling, who judges the results and by what standards? You got any comments about these four functions?
No comments from me. I think, these are generally the bullet points for management criteria that is also used for self-determination as well, right? So when you're working on a project, you kind of have to do these same things, and it's just a larger expansion for the organization or your department as a whole.
I think these four functions are very challenging for managers and team leaders myself, don't you? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about situational leadership. This is where I think most team unit leaders need to focus on, because every situation is different. And there are a lot of different ways to handle things. The democratic way is usually when you try to get everybody's input, you get 51% of the vote. The consensus way is where you try to get 100% of everybody's vote. I did a lot of work for Clark Equipment Company many years ago, and the CEO's management style was consensus. And as a result of that style, they moved very slowly to get anything done. The Japanese were coming up with the forklift trucks and beating their butts. And he eventually was let go and replaced by another person that became more of an autocratic leader. At that, his way of the situation demanded quickness, and so whoever the guy that came in to replace him had to act quickly, and he didn't have time to be as democratic and consensus, so became more of an autocratic leader. situation call for it. Leadership by example. There's nobody that did that better than Michael Jordan. Leadership by example. He just refused to lose, and he would just push everybody to the brink to get the best out of his teammates. And I think he was well respected, and that was how he led. He was always positive too, and talked about his family, and had a nice way about him with the media. The key traits of a CEO. Korn Ferry came out with a research study, and they said having a vision of where we are today and where we want to be tomorrow. Business models are always changing after 5, 6, 7 years. I did a lot of work with Brunswick Corporation, and I worked with 3 or 4 of their CEOs, presidents, and every 3 or 4 years they had a different one. And one of the CEOs, he wanted to be a recreation company, so he bought up maybe 6 or 7 companies. And then I worked with the treasurer who was let go, and he said they all were dogs. And so then he had to sell them for less money than they paid for them. And but that was his vision. And then there was another CEO of Brunswick that wanted to be more of a boat company. And then the economy dropped, and so it was hard to sell boats. So a lot of things change, but the key thing is if you're going to be the top dog, top person, having that vision of, and getting that input and knowing what's going on is very important. And not only having the vision, but being a strategic thinker and able to move quickly and execute your strategy and plan. But another thing that's important, if you don't have the right people on the team, you can't move as fast as quickly as you want. And believe me, I've worked with a lot of people been fired that disagreed with the CEO in terms of his vision. And so if someone's always fighting you, they're not going to be around very much or very long. What derails leaders in the company? Somehow, what would you say is the number one reason that people leave or release from their company?
Leave or get released?
Either one. What'd you say, Therese?
I kind of feel like maybe people leave companies because they're not getting promoted quick enough.
No, I'm saying, why are they fired?
Oh, fired. Okay, that's why I wasn't sure. Probably for not maintaining their objectives.
They're not focusing on the objective?
Not meeting their objective, like
it's performance.
Yeah.
Performance problem. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. How about Summer?
Well, I think the performance problem is related to, not agreeing with the mission or the shared vision, right? So if you can't agree with that, the direction is going in the right place, and you can't get behind it, you're not going to perform in many cases at a good level, and you're either going to quit or you're going to end up getting released.
Let's take a look at what McCall and Lombardo had to say about why they found, well, as Ferry said, specific performance problems with the business. Did a lot of work for Montgomery Ward, and Bernie Brennan was running the company. And every morning he looked at the numbers, and if they weren't there, he was not a happy man. And he let a lot of people go as a result of it. I worked with a CEO in Detroit, and I said to him, "How do you always want to be remembered?" "I always hit my numbers." It's amazing when you work for a Wall Street company or private company, the numbers, the performance getting, making sure you take in more than you lose is important. If you work for the government, you could just print more money. It's all about servicing the public. And sensitivity to others.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big one. Watch what you say and do. How many times do you read in the paper about somebody being let go because they did something and said something that they shouldn't have at work. It had nothing to do with their performance, but they just made a comment or did something that was inappropriate, and they got fired. And here's another one: cold, aloof, and arrogant, bad attending and listening skills, self-centered. Had to work with the chief economist for Acume. He was in the room with all the presidents, and he would argue with them against what was right and what their thoughts were, and he would always be putting them down. Well, guess what happened to him? Mike Mulligan was called up, and I met with him. He was let go. He was a Harvard graduate, very smart, but he just didn't have the people skills to get along with the top people, and he rubbed them the wrong way, and wasn't intellect, it was EQ. Here's another one. Boy, it's a big one. Trust. Somebody tells you something in confidence, private, and you tell somebody else behind that person's back. You can't trust someone. How do you feel about it when you can't find someone that you trust, Therese?
Oh, you don't want to confide in them or even really spend much time with people like that or work hard for them.
Really hard to have a good relationship, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's suppose you know your boss says something to you that really upsets you, and you go and say, Jane, Jack just bawled me out, and there was no reason for him to do that. And well, anyway, she goes and tells Jack about you saying something about it, and next thing you know, you could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Overmanaging, afraid to delegate to anybody. You want to take on everything yourself. Overambitious, and it shows. Failing to staff effectively. You want to take it all yourself. And inability to think strategically. There have been a number of people that my firm has worked with, and I'd ask, why did you let this person go? And they think that person doesn't think strategically. I've had several people tell me that. Unable to adapt to a boss with a different style.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be one of the hardest things in the world, when you got a boss that you really like, or a unit leader, and then that unit leader leaves you, and you get somebody who isn't a situational leader, someone who's dictatorial, abrasive, meets one of these categories, and it's hard to come to work, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Overdependence on a mentor advocate. You never become a self-manager. One of the things I'd like to just comment is, it gets a lot of people in trouble, is if you're a unit leader, department head, division head, whatever, you've got position power. But when you come in the office with the person that you report to, your position power becomes, you have to work more on personal power, because that person has the position power, right? And you can't forget that. So in the way you interact is completely different. So it's the respect that we were talking about that's so important. This book I wrote, the Mulligan Leadership Analysis Survey, you've got it in the book I sent you. And this is a way you can kind of analyze yourself, your leadership behavior, your personality, your strengths and weaknesses, your capability to complete tasks. I put together around 60 tasks, and about 20 of them have to do with leadership, and the other 40 management based. And one of the things is learning with leadership is learning how to increase your personal power. Get people to follow you. Because if you're going to be a leader and nobody wants to follow you, you're not going to be much of a leader, are you? And management skills, oops, a little touchy. Your personal values and what's important to you is on this thing, and your emotional intelligence. And I added the helping communication survey to the book. It's how do you help people? I think that's real important if you're going to be a team unit leader. And then your performance management system, these areas, so you can fill it out and see how you do. And again, going through it very quickly, the senior leadership behaviors, the vision, developing fellowship, implementing the vision, follow through, achieving results, and team player. If you were to do a 360, these are the areas that you would be assessed on by others. A lot of your 360s have identified these 3 areas in bold as the 6 areas that you would be measured on as a team and how your teammates would see you. Any comments? No. And then I have this personality leadership profile that, yeah, it covers 8 traits. And you take it, and one of the areas I measure you on is your competitiveness, the I want to achieve. The second one is the will to achieve. If you don't have these first 2, it's good, you're not going to be good in sales. And you've got to have this to be a high-level executive and be self-directed. You can't be told what to do if you have to be a self-manager. And detailed. One of the things I find that a lot of people at the top are thinkers, but they need people to help them with the detail. That's probably the financial people, right? And patience. How many people make decisions because they're not very patient? You agree with that statement?
Well, I think
Yeah, sometimes.
the patience is a function of information. So if you're under pressure to make a decision and you don't have information, you're going to be a little bit more impulsive when it comes to making a decision. I think if you want to be a good manager, you have to kind of weigh the options carefully and pick a solution that makes the most sense. You can only make the best decision you can with the information you have.
Well, it's I know I can look at these first 5 here, and I can tell you I'm not very good with detail. I always needed someone to organize me, and my patience has never been very good. And sometimes you're not patient. You don't take long enough to understand the situation, and you can be impulsive and make bad decisions. You know, helpful. Again, being able to listen to somebody and be able to respond to their feelings and what they're saying, I think is real important. I gave a talk to an HR group once on helping communication, and the lady said, if anybody's not, if they're not insensitive that works for us, they're too sensitive, they don't belong here. And I was thinking, well, what about the feeling? Most people have feelings. Do you run over them?
Hopefully that wasn't a mental health facility.
It was an engineering firm, and you know, it would maybe fit the environment. And then innovative, and one that you see everywhere is team builder or collaborative, being a collaborative person. Number 3, I'm going to go through these a little quicker. These are what you'll be measured on. These leadership management tasks. It's all in the book. Leadership tasks in personal power, staffing, one-on-one management, building team and team play, and your management skills, self-management. These are things that you'd be measured on.
Can you just touch upon staffing?
Excuse me?
Can you just touch upon staffing on the other slide, number 3?
Number 3?
Yeah, number 3 had staffing on it. What do you mean by that?
Organizing and staffing, recruiting.
And it's what, hiring good people?
Well, that would be, again, part of looking at your management skills. I mean, staffing's real important. When I was management director of Century 21, I inherited 6 people. And their job at that time was to go around to all the franchise owners and make sure they had the Century 21 signs up and they wore Century 21 clothes. They were almost acting like Gestapo. And then I inherited them. And the reason that they really wanted me to be in charge is to teach them counseling skills, to be able to listen and respond to the owners and help them understand their problems and the solutions to their problems. And so I had a big job in front of me when I had to change their behavior to go from being more Gestapo to being a consultant. And then the personal and work values. These are some of the 21 values that would be measured. What would be your top 2, Elise, just quickly looking at these personal values?
Oh, let's see. I think loyalty is one.
Yeah.
I have a couple of seconds, but maybe autonomy and achievement too.
Autonomy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing here, let's say you guys were running your team unit. Wouldn't it be interesting to see, of the 6 people on your staff, how they would rank their top 3 values? Would that be interesting?
Yeah.
I would say, obviously we talked about it a little bit before, but you kind of wonder where number 20 would fall into the picture. But you said loyalty. How about honesty and achievement? Would that be very high? It would be interesting just to see if you had 6 people on your staff. Where would power be ranked with the 6 people? Physical appearance, would that be down at the bottom? Yeah, it'd be interesting. It used to be that when we had all these people coming in that lost their jobs, they all wore suits. Today, everybody wears what they want, right? Just about. Well, anyway, that's one of the surveys that we have. And there's another one here that ranks these 5 work values. Is achievement the most important thing on my list? I like being with people. I like to get a lot of recognition. I like to be an entrepreneur. I like doing things. I like to balance a lifestyle. I want more time off to be with my family. So that's what you get there. And then your EQ, the personal competence, the self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, social competence, empathy, social skills. Goldman, I think you've read some stuff on EQ, but he really feels that emotional intelligence is key to working with people. being more aware of them and being able to have some empathy for them if they were to tell you something that is going wrong with them, to be able to respond with empathy. The guy that started Jimmy John's, Jim Leotold, wanted to hire me. It's the Leotold Institute at the University of Illinois, Chicago Circle campus. And he wanted to charge $9,500 to go into a company and work with the top executives to improve their emotional intelligence. That's what he was, and he was a multi-millionaire. But sometimes the idea of hitting the target, hitting those numbers, like I told you, you get competitive, you get aggressive, and you're not as nice to people as you could be, because every day you go to work. My wife and I had a home up in Michigan at the Homestead Resort right on the beach, and the 5 guys right across from us that had big homes bigger than ours were 5 guys from Chrysler Corporation that had gotten rich because of the buyout. And over the years, when I've worked with Wall Street company CEOs and high-level people, their main thing is to drive up the stock value so they get rich. That's their goal. And if the people are costing too much money, they'll get rid of them and they'll bring in technology. So I don't know, they say EQ is important. I think EQ is important when it comes to getting people to follow you, to make sure that you care about them. And especially, what's interesting I've noticed is that the higher you get in the executive ranks, you want to hire self-managers because you don't want to manage people. The lower the ranks, it's where the managers that have people that you're trying to develop have to have the empathy. They have to have, help people be motivated, help them grow and be the best they can be. And that's the guys at the top are looking at the strategy and the numbers. And the financial aid people tell them what the scoreboard is, right?
We're not always the villains of the story.
What's that?
We're not always the villains of the story.
Well, anyway, this is a breakdown of the EQ. Performance management. I guess I really believe in a performance management system, having played sports and been a coach in high school for a couple of years. My sophomore year in high school, our performance management system was a single wing offense. Our line dropped from 220 to 170, so we couldn't block up front. And we won 1 game out of 8. Our coach went to a wing T offense, another performance management system. The next year was a quick hitting Ivers quarterback, and we won the championship. We only lost 1 game in 2 years, but we would have not won if we didn't have a performance management system that fit us and that made us put more points on the board than our opponents. And so I do really think that if you're going to be a team leader, you need to think of what kind of performance management system do I need. And so I'm going to move forward after saying that. And your performance management system needs to have an agenda. What are your plans, steps, and timetable and vision? Your network for achieving your agenda, organizing and staffing and motivating the people, and how you execute, meeting your objectives, controlling the problems, and getting the outcome that you really want. You guys have a performance management system, Therese and Selma?
I don't. No, I mean we're a small shop, so it's just me and whatever other consultant I engage. But the key though is I usually talk to my clients on a regular basis and make sure they're getting what that we're on the same page when it comes to what they're looking to get.
I guess I should have asked, do you have a staff that reports to you? Are you
No,
out there?
I operate kind of as a lone wolf, but I'm looking for another role, which probably in a full-time role, which would probably be a managerial type of situation.
Okay.
So the information you're giving me is very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on. So those are the 7 areas that we were trying to measure and talk about. That's almost a whole session in itself to go through something like that. And then the second one, the second phase is the triangle team leadership model. And I kind of came up with this title, watching the Bulls play, the triangle offense. Was over there quite a few times at the center. And I call this a management system, and it has the 3 tasks. You need a planning process, the vision, and the mission statement. The second one is the model itself has to have a structure, a network through. If it's going to be in the organization, it's got to go throughout the whole organization, so everybody is running the same system. It's like where I went to high school, they started running the offense and the defensive system in football starting 7th grade. So by the time the kids got to be juniors and sophomores and seniors, they were well equipped knowing the system that the coach wanted to run. And here task 3 is establishing best in field growth goals and objectives for team members, team unit, and organization. Those are the 3 tasks. Okay, let's talk about 1. If you're having a vision for your company, I guess, what are the services or products do we offer today? Remember I was telling you about the evolution of the CEOs at Brunswick Corporation, how they all had their own ideas, their own vision for what they wanted the company to be. That is really important, isn't it? And things, the business model can change in 5 or 6 years. Who are your customers and who's going to buy your service products? Who's your competition and who controls the marketplace? Where do you want to be tomorrow? Services, products, and market share. And how do we brand ourselves and market our organization? Those are 5 good questions you need to think about when you want to develop your vision. Here's a mission statement that comes from the performance leadership model that I really believe that being the best in our field is a great mission statement. It represents the motivator challenge. It's the motivator achievement. Recognition. I mean, everybody wants to be recognized as pretty good at what they do, right? Responsibility. Give you lots of responsibility. And if you're the best in your field, the recruiters that come after you, right? They hear you're working in a good company and you're at a great company. People go come and recruit you. And then you grow because you're reaching out, and it can get additional compensation. This is taken from Hertzberg motivational model. This is the triangle team leadership model, starting at the top. You have your corporate and the CEO and his presidents in a corporation. And they come up with what are the objectives for the year. And then the presidents meet at the division level with the department heads, and they come up with the objectives for the division that make them the best in the division. And then department heads are head of the triangle. the team members in the department, how do all the objectives coincide with one another? So then the question is, as you set and you meet your objectives for the organization, like for example, let's increase our sales from 150 to 155. Let's reduce our costs. These are the two that have to do with profit, right? More income, less expense. And then you go to the department of help increase company sales. So they're all looking at the same big objectives, which is the bottom line to a certain degree. Now, this would be more for private companies or Wall Street companies. I'm not sure. The biggest employer is the government, but I don't think they set these kind of objectives. Individual objectives. Each team member becomes an expert in performing work tasks that they're assigned. Each team member completes tasks to meet 5 key career growth goals. I wrote this book, The 5 Key Career Pathway Plan, and we're going to talk about it in just a minute. But the whole idea is it's a way that a person plans and manages a career journey. Phase 3, analyzing the personal dynamics of the team unit, build team cohesiveness and motivating reports to make themselves an department best in their field. Analyzing the personality dynamics of the team. Let me ask you this. I'll ask you this question in just a second. And then the Mulligan leadership profile, we talked about some of those traits. But these are the 2 assessments that I would recommend: the personality profile and the Myers-Briggs type. Have you guys taken MBTI?
I took the Myers-Briggs many years ago, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Me too.
Okay. Well, I like it as a tool to do this.
Oh, wait a minute.
Like the personality survey I talked about. These are the 8 traits, excuse me, that I went over before. Let me just get them here. Competitiveness, determination, self-directed. It would be interesting if you take a look at the 6 people on your department, and the 5 is highly competitive, right? At the highest level. A 1 is not like me. 5 is definitely like me. What happens if you got a sales group and the average on a scale of 1 to 5 is a 3 or 2.5? I mean,
You're not going to make a lot of sales.
yeah, I don't think so. I don't think your team is going to be hustling as much as they're not that. I'd be surprised. Let's put it that way. Depends on what they're selling, of course. I had a stockbroker who he went through my program and managed my money. He was at the bottom on competitiveness. When he managed my money for 3 years, I never could put him, he would never put me in tech stocks. He was not very aggressive. And he left me, then he put me all in tech stocks, and I lost a lot of money. I shouldn't have gone with him because his personality and my personality didn't match. Because I'm at least highly competitive, and I was willing to take more gamble. But a lot of times you look at a person's personality, it tells you a lot about how they're going to operate in your department and in the company and just operate. And how quickly how quickly does someone give up if you're trying to do something? And self-directed, how much do you have to manage them? On the other hand, how independent are they? Oh my God, do they ever take any instructions from you? They're so independent, you might have to get rid of them, depending on what you got them doing, right? And the detail work, all these traits I think are very important when you take a look at the people that report to you. Let's take a look at the Myers-Briggs, the extroverts and the introverts. where you get your energy. Sensors versus how you gather information, how you make decisions, how you. Let's break it down a little bit more. Let's say you got 6 people on your staff and 5 are extroverts, and you got them at home by themselves. What is that doing for them?
Well, they're going to be very
Crazy.
isolated and not productive because they're not feeding off of the customer or getting the appropriate stimuli.
You probably need to have more Zoom meetings, right? You got to bring them together because they like the interaction with each other, because they get their energy by talking to other people. And if they're alone too much, their energy is drained. On the other hand, the introverts tend to keep their decisions inside. They are energized by thoughts and ideas. They become drained if they spend too much time with other people. So they're the ideal person to have at home working by themselves, right? They tend to listen rather than talk. Well, these guys up here, the extroverts, like to do all the talking. They tend to think out loud, and they avoid being the center of attention. Think things through inside their heads and respond about thinking about it, more passive. So if you had 6 people on your staff, question is, how many extroverts do you have and how many introverts, and how do they interact as a result of this particular trait? How many extroverts in a team and how many introverts? That's the question at the bottom there. The sensors versus the intuitives. The sensors gather information in their hands and they are interested in the tangible here and now aspects of the situation. They like detail and specifics, trust is certain and concrete, oriented to the present. They want to be real and common sense. The intuitives, they look for positive relation among things. They tend to look at the big picture, orient toward the future. They're the ideal people. And again, how could these people clash? If you have all sensors and no intuitives, what does that do for your group?
You have no creative thinkers.
You don't have any idea people. If you got all sensors, it sounds like they might be good in finance or maybe computers or something. They're good in details and the here and now. But the question is, are they looking for ways to always improve the process? And if you were reporting to me, and you were a sensor, I would talk about this with you. You know, I'd like to see you. I like you because you keep our feet on the ground, but I want you to express some of your ideas a little more. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's good for one-on-one management. Thinkers versus the feelers. Well, these are the people that let all the people go. They have no, their feelings are very low. You know, hey, if we can make more money, let's do it. And then the feelers, you know, they're more subjective. They sometimes their feelings can get in the way. They might keep somebody on their staff too long because they like them and they're not doing the job. But on the other hand, if the job calls for more feelings, like who would you think, what department should have more feelers than anybody? HR? Be interesting, wouldn't it, to see how many feelers work in HR in your department, in your company?
I would think the on the surface that's true, but I think HR probably has a lot more thinkers than it does feelers.
Well, it depends on what you're asking people to do, you know. But if we're all running a company, sometimes you have to be hard-nosed, and you have, it depends on what's important to you. And then the next group on the Myers-Briggs is the judges versus perceivers, they call them. The judges set the goals and work toward achieving them on time, emphasis on completing the task, from finishing the products. Are happiest leaving their options open, enjoy now and finish job later. So again, that would be interesting to see how many people that would fall into judging versus perceiving, right? Building a cohesive team. One of the biggest and best programs I've ever been through is the Achievement Motivation Program by Clement Stone Foundation. It is a fantastic program, and I'm going to tell you about it. I taught a course for a whole week out in New Jersey at a university and gave academic credit. The average person is functioning at less than 10%, according to some people. Why is that? Because nobody ever fills up their buckets. We have a tendency to always take away from people with criticism rather than, you know, some kind of nice statement about what they're doing right. And so as a result, people are afraid to do a lot of things because they don't want to make any mistakes. I worked at Georgia Tech and Georgia for 7 years, those two schools. And the whole idea was you don't make any mistakes if you want to keep your job. So you don't do much. You don't do much. So your potential is being wasted because you don't think of ideas and stuff like that. It's all about what the public will think of you if you do something wrong. Our director of housing was fired because a boy answered the phone in the girls' room. They took orientation away from me because two of my orientation leaders woke up in a skit under the sheets together. I worked my butt off and they take it out of the admissions office. And it's just your potential there in an environment that you don't want to make any mistakes, so you don't use your potential. Your potential's not going to come out. And you don't talk about new ideas. You talk about doing the same thing over and over. Okay, you get a bunch of people together, and let's say I got you guys in my group, okay, Therese and Sima. Okay, the idea to start off is talking a little bit about what kind of name do you want to be called, Sima? How do you like people to address you?
Sima.
And Therese? You like to be called what?
Therese.
Okay. Well, you start off and why do you like that name? So you talk about what you like to be called. Then you start asking people to tell you about some of the most important life experiences they've experienced as far what's important to them. So you go around your group, then you talk about success stories. What are some of the things that you really enjoyed doing and what happened there? And so you go around the room and give each person maybe 2 to 3 minutes to talk about themselves in the group 6. Then all of a sudden I say, what is some of the strengths that you see in Therese? You've listened to her now 3 or 4 times, 5, 6 times about what she's experienced, what she likes. What do you see in her? So we start doing the strength thing, and we do it with you. So the people are saying good things about you. So how does that make you feel about them? Can't dislike them.
Mm-hmm.
CNA had a program once. They had brought in this lady, psychologist, and all she did was tell the people what was wrong with them. They couldn't wait to get out of the room. And this program is something that focuses on the person's strengths So what you're doing is you're building team cohesiveness. And then all of a sudden you start reviewing some of the objectives of your department, right? And then you start asking each person to set up personal objectives or things that they would do to help the unit department meet their objectives. And then you have positive recognition to a team and members of their achievement. In other words, you keep meeting. And Therese, how'd you said you were going to do this, how'd you do? Oh, I met all my goals, I did all my tasks. Someone said, I did all my tasks, way to go. And you start patting each other on the back, right? And you start feeling good about each other because you're getting positive strokes instead of negative strokes. And as your team starts to meet its objectives of being best in your field, your functional area, and you, then there's ways to wave your flag so that everybody in that company knows what a good job you're doing. It might be a subtle thing, but in my book, Moving Out and Moving Up, I was going to talk about it last Tuesday. It talks about how to do that in that last chapter, phase 5. Believe me, it's deadly. It is so wonderful to go through this achievement motivation program. I just tell you, I did it with 90 people for 3 hours of credit in New Jersey for a week. And at the end of the program, everybody stood up and started singing Battle Hymn of the Republic. It was great. And every time I ever did it with anybody, it just brought everybody together and they felt so good about the people that were there. The need for one-on-one management. I just want to tell you, when I took over the 6 consultants at Century 21 of Northern Illinois, the first meeting I had, one of the guys, he looked like Pluto and Popeye, sat in the back of the room looking at a picture while I'm talking. I was getting so irritated, my patience was getting very thin. And I finally said something to him. I said, is there something about that picture that we all should know about? He turns around, looks at me, and he says, no. And I said, well, why don't we get acquainted in my office, and I'd like to get to know you better. See, when I took over the job, I wasn't the most knowledgeable guy about real estate, but I knew something about working with people. Part of my PhD was in group work and teamwork and helping people. And my job was to teach them counseling skills. Well, I wasn't going to argue with that guy in front of the other 5 consultants. When I got him in the office one-on-one, I said to him, look, I'd like to have you on my team, but I need your support. And I was talking, you showed me you were disrespectful to me in front of the others. And I did, I didn't like that. But I need to have you on my team because I think you know a lot about real estate and that you could help the brokers. But you need to also work with me, and we need to define what we're going to try to do to accomplish here to be a good department. Well, we came around. I went to my boss and said, I'd like to get rid of this guy. But my boss said, give him a chance. Well, 3 weeks later, my boss hires him, and 2 weeks later, my boss fires him. Well, and I was listening to a guy from Atlanta one time, and he said, the only way you can manage groups and manage people is one-on-one. For example, Sama and Lisa, if you guys are bantering back and forth at all our meetings, what would I say in front of the other 5 or 6 people? It's a conflict. But if I got Teresa in my office and said, Teresa, what is it between you and Sama? You guys are always going to each other. You know, can't you work together? Can't you respect? Can't you listen to him and say, I like your idea, but have you thought about this? I can help change your behavior one-on-one, but I can't do it talking to you with other 5 people in the room. So, and then the other thing is the objectives, you have to have the task, complete tasks to meet these objectives. And you got to come up with the task. And in the book I wrote, can help anybody. It's called Sharpening My One-on-One, Helping Communication and Performance Facilitation Skills. To take off of my doctorate program. But helping communication is helping someone identify what makes you the best at what you're doing, Therese. What are the tasks that I want you to do? Gemma, what are the tasks that make you the best at what you do? Let's say we have 10 of them. Let's go through and use Maslow's hierarchy. Are you unconsciously incompetent about this one? This is one that's important to me. Are you consciously incompetent? And the third one, are you consciously competent? And the fourth one is, are you unconsciously competent? In other words, you can do this task without even thinking about it. And I'm going to put you down as my expert coach, my specialty mentor for anybody that needs help in this area. So by the time the month goes by, let's say you have 2 or 3 tasks that you are maybe consciously incompetent. So I asked Therese, she's unconsciously competent in this area. Would you coach Emma? So I'm making Therese feel like she's important, but in the end, you're going to be competent in all 10 of those tasks. And then I'm going to say to you, will you become an expert coach or mentor for me to help others in the future? And I'm going to have a little directory that it puts you in to make sure that everybody knows that you're competent in all these areas. But here's the kicker: in terms of your career direction, I want to train you for another job. So next year, starting, I'm going to give you some more tasks that I want you to learn to be competent in, because I think Jesse's going to be leading us. And I think maybe you can take Jesse's place and move up. What does that do for your staff? That's called retention, right? And it's called career advancement. But if you don't meet one-on-one with people, how do you help them? How do you know? And you got to identify what you want them to do and what you want them to be good at doing. It's like if I'm the ends coach for the Bears and you're playing ends, and I want to coach you on being the best. I want you to be all pro. But what are the tasks that you need to be competent unconsciously? So you go out on that field, you do 7 or 8 things without even thinking, and you become the best in your field. What does that do for you? It means you earn more money. It means you have a better chance of staying on the team. You're growing, you're meeting all the motivators that we talked about. But if you don't have the one-on-one management, how does it happen? How does it happen? And it calls for helping communication skills, and the performance facilitation is facilitating the performance so that people meet the task. It's facilitating the performance so the direct reports, and I don't care what level it is. The problem is once you get to the top of the ladder, you think you know it all, and that's where you get in trouble. That's where you get in trouble. There's no one as smart as all of us. There are 3 stages of it's a pretty simple thing. First of all, if I'm working with you 2, I better have a good rapport with you, right? And a good working helping relationship, or you don't want to meet with me. The second area is reviewing the department objectives and setting individual and identifying the tasks to complete these objectives. And the third stage is operating as a facilitator to help complete these tasks so that they're best in they're best in their field. You know, a lot of times I've been in the office, 100 people have been fired. And I talked to the people, why were these people fired? I'd like to know. Oh, they're expecting that. They know that they're going to be fired. Well, they had such piss poor managers, supervisors or whatever. They never went over the objectives. They never went over the tasks. It was vague why they were fired. And if you go over and you got 10 tasks that you want someone to do, and you give them coaching, and they still can't do it, then it's a performance problem, as Therese pointed out right away when we talked about why people let go. But why would you hire them to begin with, unless it's the son or daughter of the owner of the company? You know, you want people to meet the specs of what you want in the job. So, but here's the thing about stage one is the rapport, getting to know each other, something in common, listening, attending, responding with empathy with people, trust and show respect for the person. Sort of, these are three emphasize to report you want him or her to be best at the position and be ready to advance to another. I don't think today that you think most people expect to be in the same job forever. So what can you do if you're working with people one-on-one and they report to you? You only have them for a certain period of time, right? Look at these young millennials that come to work. They don't stay 10 years, 5 years. What are they looking for? They're looking for career guidance, career direction, career development. And if managers or unit leaders aren't skilled in helping them take a look at who they are and their strengths and weaknesses and help them turn those weaknesses into strengths, then they're going to be, the students or the millennials are going to leave quicker. Then you're going to have constant turnover all the time, and your acquisition, your recruiter is going to be pretty busy. But here's the key to the whole thing. I'm going to go back here. Is this task expert process down here? This is something you can't. I don't know if you can see it on the thing. It's called task expert process, and that's where I took the unconsciously incompetent number one. If I don't know what I need to do, then you need to tell me. I don't know. Now I know what I need to do, but I'm not completely confident. That's 2. 3, I know how to do it, but I don't have the confidence to do it, well at this point. I don't feel I need to follow my directions and make sure I can do it, but I'm not so sure. And the 4th is I know how to do it without even thinking about it. I've done it so much. So you could give them a 4 or a 1. You could go whatever numbers you want to put on it. And then you make them feel good, because I want you to be my coach in this area. You're my expert, you're my specialty mentor in this area, this task. It's important to the company. That really makes people feel good to know that they know something where they could help somebody. But it's a task expert process that's needed to be implemented to make sure that everybody knows what to do and how to do it and do it well without even thinking about it. Then your department is humming, your division is humming, everybody's really getting good. You're gonna be. I don't see how you can't do a great job in your company. And your performance facilitator thing is to help them complete the task so they meet these objectives. And the 4 M's I put in there, you know, measure what you're trying to accomplish, monitor it, modify, and meet the task. And then if let's say, Therese, you're not moving as fast, I might say to you, you know, we were going to do this. We agreed you were going to do this. What's slowing you down? I'm confronting you, but I'm doing it in a nice way. I'm not yelling at you. I just want you to, you need some help. Can we get you a coach? I want you to think that I really care about you, because someday you might leave this company and you might be my boss. And that happens. The people you train can go on to greater things. They might go to University of Chicago, get the MBA or Northwestern, and move up to be a CEO or chief officer somewhere, and say, I remember Teresa, I want her on my team. She taught me everything. She was my first coach. I want her on my team. Now that's how you get jobs, right? You help the people around you be good. And the Route 5 Career Pathway Plan is a book I wrote, and it focuses on meeting 5 Ps. You got to position yourself each year. Where do I want to be? What career field? What position? If I start off as controller, what do I want to be as CFO? How do I prepare for it? How do I place myself in the job? How do I perform the tasks they ask me to do? So I keep my job and I become an expert. And I want personal satisfaction from my job, and I get it by doing well and interacting well with my people that I work with. Those are the 5 Ps you try to meet every year with tasks, so that you're moving and advancing. There's no career planning and management model out there, and that's why I put this one together. These are stage 3 that we just went through, and number 5, transfer your reports and especially mentors best in the field and recognize them in some way. They'll love you. Recognition goes a long ways. So what are we coming out with in this webinar? Leadership and management are pretty much defined the same. The question is, if you're going to lead, you've got to have some kind of division. Where are you taking your people, and why? And you got to be able to organize, get the right people, and manage the trip. You should have a performance management system so you can implement it in your department. And if you're CEO, a division head, you need it throughout your entire organization, not just your department. And one-on-one career mentoring and performance facilitation, I think, is imperative in a company, but I'm not sure I've seen much of it. So those were the outcomes of this webinar. I hope you guys got something out of it.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought your presentation was very helpful, and it definitely opened my eyes to a couple of managerial avenues that I hadn't thought about before. So thank you.
Well, I sent you a PDF copy with a lot of the information in that PDF copy.
I got the PDF. I didn't read it yet, but thank you for sending it.
Well, what I covered is in there.
Okay, good.
And that's why I sent it to you. Yeah. There's some assessments, but I did put that Mulligan Leadership Analysis survey as one document, just so if a team unit leader just wanted to provide those to his or her reports, they could fill them out. And I could talk about what they mean as being a unit leader and a member leader, because I think the key is that you got to ask yourself, do I want to create a leadership culture Do I want to create a performance facilitation culture? And do I want to create an organization advancement culture? And I think all three of those go hand in hand. You know, these people have to see themselves as leaders, and a leader, a team member leader, is really important that they become the best at what you ask them to do, because in the end, they're the specialty mentor. You know, they become the expert. Or so, if they do it all the time, they're gonna know more about it than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, so there's an old saying: there ain't no one as smart as all of us, right? And so you wanna make these people that work for you feel important. They're leaders in your unit. They might not have the position power that you have, but they can build their personal power by becoming knowledgeable and skillful at what they do, so that they're recognized for contributing to the welfare of your unit, whatever that might be. And the key is that if you're such an ego and all you care about is making sure that the company hits its numbers, I'm not sure you're going to be a top-notch performance facilitator and career mentor or a manager of people. I think you sort of try to manage the company, so that means you really pick good people that can manage people, you know. And that's the key, really. So, well, take a look at my website, managemycareer.info, and I've got a number of books there. I didn't know if you want to have a soft cover. That they're not very expensive, $35 for a nice soft cover. You saw the cover there of the book, and got a few others that can be helpful. If you guys ever need some help or want some help, just let me know. Maybe we could work together.
No,
Okay.
I mean, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Well, thanks for attending.
No, well, thank you for inviting us. I appreciate the fact that you were kind enough to replay the webinar that you were supposed to do before. So it saves me the trouble of having to go to Chicago again.
I got a call from Steve. I'm going to do it Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
But I put 5 phases in that book because the first one is when you get let go. It's a psychological problem for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And 2, you got to decide what you're going to do next. And 3, you got to run a campaign to get it. And 4, when you start a company, go into a company, a new job, you better build relationships with people. And once you have those relationships, then you got the position power. You try to build the best team unit you can, you know.
Right.
We had a program called the Boomerang Club in back in the 90s. That was where a lot of our executives would go out and they'd get fired again within 3 months. And I said, we better go to phase 4, where we prepare them. They call it onboarding today, many of these professionals. But I said, we got to do a better job, you know, getting these individuals to be able to interact with people, so they build their personal power and keep their jobs. You might know a lot, but you got to get along with people and work with people, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Unless you're home working on a computer all the time by yourself. I don't know. Even then, you got to talk to people once in a while.
Very true.
Well,
even if they're just your family
Tuesday,
members.
If you join me next Tuesday, I'm going to try to run this again Thursday next week. I might ask you to give your comments, and if you tell them that it was really bad, just don't say anything.
When did you say you're going to try again on Tuesday to do the FANG meeting again?
Yeah, next Tuesday. I just talked to Steve today.
Okay.
So we're going to do it next Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay, perfect. So this is a little bit
about,
different content?
I'll talk about the 5 phases, but I'm not going to talk about this one because this takes a lot of lot of conversation, as you can see from today. And but it's one of my favorite topics. It's how do you build a win-win environment? You know, how do you get the right people, blend them together, work together, and do the things you want them to do to be competitive, so everybody keeps their job and the company does well, whether it's your company or somebody else's. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Oh, that's great.
it's not an easy thing, but if you're an egomaniac, it's hard to build a team.
Yep.
And so